Now that I have the mill set up, it's time to get some more milling done. I'm trying to figure out the best way to load the logs. And at this point I tried just dumping a bunch of them in front of the mill and then using the forks on the tractor to kind of just basically act as a shelf. And then I can use the backhoe to turn it around and pick them up. But it didn't quite work as well as I would like it. I mean, having the forks there and having a spot to just shift the cut pieces onto actually worked quite well. But having to turn the tractor around again and again and again was kind of annoying. And so you can see I was trying to make sure that the pith is reasonably centered. Trying to measure things, and I've kind of come to what I figured out so far works the best for me is I sort of put the blade right in the middle, right through the pith, and then I can kind of take a judgment of where that's at. I can then take move up and start taking a few off. And so I know exactly how far down I can go before I get to the piece that I want. The focus for most of what I'm working on is trying to get 4x4s for posts, 4x6s for beams, and 4x6s for rafters. And, the nice part about working for yourself is when your wife decides to send you some texts, you can take a minute and answer them and not get in trouble. Having this mill has been... It's not even a comparison to trying to cut with an Alaskan mill. The only gripe that I have so far is that the mill is flat. It is not level. So now when I adjust it the next time, I know to either lower the right side or raise the left side up by not much, just like half an inch or so. That way when I re-flatten it, it'll be a little bit more level. It's not a problem per se that it does roll backwards a little bit, but if anything, it would be nicer if it rolled forward. But that's okay. Being flat is the more important aspect. So now I've got it to where I'm going to be trimming it down to a 4-inch size. So I stack all the little off-cut 1-inch pieces, or 2-inch when I can get them, and then I can take it down. Then I'll flip them all over here, and then take that last size down, and then I got me a bunch of 1x4s, 1x3s. I think I got a couple of 1x3s out of that. A few 2x4s there. Another text from the wife. And I believe that would be the last one. So now I've got another 2x4, a couple of 1x4s, and a 4x4. Oh, guess I had to make one more. It's not a bad spot to have the mill, all said and, when it's all said and done. This particular area, to get it as flat and level as it is, took about 12 dump trucks of fill, if I remember correctly, and then quite a few hours of shifting them around with the front loader bucket and whatnot, and then driving around and grading. So this is what I was saying is, see, now I can just kind of go pick that one up. Stand around and stare for a second, decide how I want to do that. And then drop a log, and you can see the tracks there in the mud. It's definitely going to be a challenge. That's the one problem I have with this area, is it's not perfectly flat. There is a couple of low spots that collected some water. So that's a challenge we have pretty much everywhere on our property right now, is building up any driveway / road, walking path, whatever. So I ended up actually bringing most of the wood chips from the few videos ago. We had the ash trees that we took down to change the driveway, and all of those branches got chopped up, and we brought all those wood chips, and I actually laid a lot of these offcut pieces down and then put the wood chips on top of them. I know that they're going to break down, and the offcuts are actually going to, break. They're not necessarily designed to support the weight of the tractor, just to help give it some distribution of weight, so that as I drive over it, it doesn't just immediately sink into the mud, since that's really all gravel on a road does anyway. So that's where I got to for the first day, and this is the 27th now, September 27th. And start with the same thing, trying to decide how I want it to go. This one actually turned out to be a little bit more of a challenge, because the bottom of it, you can see, has a really big flare there, really big bell at the right side. I didn't want to cut very well, and at the time I was actually hoping to get a pair of 18-foot 2x6s, but I ended up, as I was taking it over to where they're going to be used, I ended up catching one of them on a tree because it was dark, and I heard it crack. So they are no longer structurally safe, in my opinion. So I cut them in half, and they'll be used for something else. They were going to be used basically as a joist brace to tie some 2x8 pressure treated to create a 24-foot long section, but I decided obviously not to do that. Would have made my job here a lot easier had I done that to start with, rather than fighting with an 18-foot long log, but fortunately it's only I think it was 10-ish inches in diameter at the top, if I remember correctly. I should have wrote that down, I guess, but that's okay. And that's what happens there. Sorry for the jolt. That's what happens when your battery dies. Since I have the two track extensions, when I have a short-ish log, less than 10 feet, it's actually kind of nice because I can put two of them up there. And when they're reasonably close in size, that actually makes it super easy to just, mill both basically at the same time. There's Charlie coming to see if I'm able and willing to play. Emily was kind enough to bring me the wheelbarrow so I could start putting the wood sawdust in it, although I haven't taken the time to actually collect any of that yet. The sawdust will ultimately, when I start collecting that and getting piles big enough to be worth shoveling, I will dump that down around all the areas that I'm going to be having to drive and walk, so it'll get smashed down into the mud and help firm this all up. And the nice part is that as I keep adding to this and creating a more stable round surface, I will be able to that'll actually be, eventually this will basically be a parking area for any time we have friends and family come and visit. And since our little camping area is off to the right. If you look closely there, that's actually what we were talking about, the mud and the challenge that it's already starting to create. And you can see the tire marks there. That was a pretty noticeable little hole that created. Emily had some questions about why I was milling the sizes that I was choosing and things like that. So we were discussing that, and then we got distracted. I don't remember what we were talking about anymore after that. But clearly she is the most important thing, because even as excited as I am to be milling and getting all these logs cut up, she shows up and I have to, well, I don't have to, but I choose to stop and spend whatever time chatting with her. It's kind of nice too, because Charlie's is really her dog, so when she's around, he doesn't come and bug me. And I did a horrible job putting this together, apparently, because you know, ultimately, the problem here lies with me. I will freely admit that. Obviously, I did not pay enough attention when I put them together, put the video clips together, but part of the challenge See, here's where I was trying to be smart and see if I could put the logs on two at a time. And it kind of worked. It would have worked a lot easier if I'd have had if we'd have had an excavator instead of just a backhoe, but that's okay. It is what it is. You do with what you got sometimes. Anyway, as I was saying, apparently the video clips are slightly out of sequence here because I wasn't paying enough attention. But that's partially also because of the reason that I am 99% positive I'll never buy another GoPro camera. Because for some weird reason they do their file sequencing numbers all kinds of jacked up, and the first video in a in a recording is it actually has a different file name. So when you go through and what I usually do, obviously I forgot, and when I modified this to be 10x, I obviously didn't pay enough attention. But what I would usually do is go through and sort everything by date, and then ignore the GoPro file naming and create my own. It only takes a few minutes, but it's a few minutes that shouldn't have to be done, or it's time that shouldn't have to be spent, in my opinion. So when this camera dies, then we will replace it with something else, and it'll be a different brand. But oh well. This is actually it's actually been a really empowering thing to have the sawmill. And just know that with the logs that we've got out there, whatever we need. Oh, yes. This is when I decided I wanted to try. So there's I tend to not read comments on other videos very often, and it's because I kind of feel like a lot of people out there are just intentionally bitter, and they're just trolling, and they're just being, just rude just because they can. That's something social media is just excelled at. One of the things that you see a lot of is that, claims that you're not a woodworker if you're not using hand tools, for instance, and I disagree with that. So I decided I wanted to try today, this particular day, actually using a handsaw. And so all of the cuts on the middle of the, trying to take this log and split it into smaller manageable pieces, I decided I would try using one of my Japanese handsaws. And I will never do that again. There's no need. There's no, I've got a chainsaw. I've got a reciprocating saw. I've got a circular saw. I've got a jigsaw. I've got a battery-powered circular saw. I mean, heck, I could even have done, cut those in half with a router, a battery-powered router if I wanted to. But regardless, there's lots of ways to do that faster and more efficiently, and just because other people think that using hand tools is a requirement doesn't actually make it so. So it was an interesting experiment. It was a fun challenge to see, how quickly I could cut through some of these with a handsaw. But I'll never do that again, because I could have literally milled a whole new log in the time it took me to cut all of those into their individual pieces. you can see I'm probably a little bit more generous than a lot of people when it comes to what I'm going to keep, because there's a lot of things that you can use smaller lumber for. Like for instance, we need crates, boxes, totes, things to store and carry in. We always have a shortage of crates and things, and so a lot of the 1x2, 1x3, 1x4 that I end up with on bringing these down to the manageable sizes that I actually need, a lot of those are going to be built as crates over this winter, as I can't do bigger projects because of mud and rain. I'll do smaller objects and build crates to store things, and like one of the biggest things I need to build quickly is we need to build some storage for our canning jars to make them more manageable. So I'll build a bunch of crates that hold canning jars and who knows what else. And Emily needs crates for her art supplies, and I need boxes and totes and toolboxes and who knows. So a lot of things that get used up or that get pulled off the mill will get saved and used up for all kinds of little projects like that. And then obviously there's a growing pile there on the left of all kinds of stuff that is going to end up as burn pile, or eventually if, I was actually a little bit surprised. Emily's kind of rattled off a list one day of the things that she feels like we need, and a wood chipper was actually very close to the top of her list of implements and tools that she thought we need for the property. So when we get a wood chipper, then a lot of that stuff can be chipped up, and we can use it to throw down over trails and whatever, and anywhere we have muddy spots, and in garden boxes or around garden boxes, and who knows. Wood chips are definitely useful, but firewood supplies is also a really good use for a lot of these smaller offcuts. So here, this bell on the back, on the butt end of that, was actually so prominent that I was able to make several passes just on that lower end before I even got to a point where I was really making full cuts all the whole width or the whole length. And there's probably, dozens, if not hundreds, of different ways to do this that could have been done, and some are better, some are worse. I'm definitely not an expert. I'm definitely not, a pro at it yet. It took me about 5.5 hours to go through my first tank of gas. But, I'll learn, I'll grow, I'll get better, I'll get more efficient. But the only thing that matters to me is having fun and saving a boatload of money, not having to buy lumber from the hardware stores. So here is what I ended up getting after that first 2 days of milling. You can see there's quite a few of my 4x4 posts, a bunch of 2x4s, a whole lot of 1x4s. There's some longer 2x6 boards. And there was some of our pressure treated. And then over here is where I'm actually working to build. That's the trailer frame. The frame actually got moved, but we'll cover that in another video. So that's where we're at for today. Thank you as always for watching, and God bless you and yours. Stay safe out there.